Shiloh or What's the Matter You is going to join me. So I am attorney Michael Ehline. I'm an attorney licensed in California and Texas. I just want to make sure before I get on the road, I'm going to go to the gym and discuss the breaking legal news of interest to people in my audience here. But I just want to make sure that I've got comms, because yesterday I was live and I had no audio. So I'm driving around talking to myself, and occasionally I look over and I see there's like one or two people in the audience, and typically I've got a couple hundred. So I was like, what's going on? And then I finally make it to the gym, and then I'm being told that, hey, you didn't have any comms, you weren't live, dude. So hopefully somebody's going to pop in here and let me know, give me some 5x5s. But testing 1 2 3, can you hear me? So still waiting, hoping and hoping. There we go. So I got one person watching. So if you can pop in and let me know you can hear me, I'll get on the road and start preaching the news, whoever that is. So I'm attorney Michael Ehline, and I am a lawyer licensed in California and Texas. I'm just going to assume that you can hear me and hope for the best as I make my journey to go hit some weights, try to do some resistance training, push some iron, big dogs, and all my peeps. Just trying to get this thing set up. I've been driving my wife's car the last couple days, and the settings are all jacked up. Hopefully, can you guys hear me? Can somebody throw me a 5x5 in the chat, just so I know you guys can hear what I'm saying? Anybody who's there, please let me know you can hear me. I'm just looking in the live chat to see if I've got anybody. All right, well, I'm going to just hope for the best, and hopefully one of my regulars will pop in and let me know. But so I am attorney Michael Ehline. I am a lawyer licensed in California and Texas. I primarily do catastrophic injury cases, but I also do a lot of Second Amendment rights and stuff like that, and that's where my love is. My passion is natural law, homeschooling, homesteading, and government accountability operations, holding the government accountable. And I've got a bunch of news. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect, Joe. Thanks. Backdoor warrior. What's up, Brizzy? You backdoor warrior? I think you got me confused with Fleece Johnson, big dog. But I got you, man. It's all good. I'm just glad you were able to join me today. But definitely not in the back door. Not in a backdoor kind of way. Maybe more in the backdoor milkman kind of a way, you know what I'm saying? So anyways, I'm glad you guys can hear me. So I'm going to get on the road, the Rizzo, you know what I'm saying, big dogs? And I'm on my way to the gym, and I figured, okay, I'm one of these guys that always stays on top of breaking news, and I'm into alternative news, Communist News Network and PMSNBC and all the globalist news stations, which is basically just leftist propaganda. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. And so just foul, I don't know, you'd have to ask your boyfriend, but in any event, so among many of the other fields of law that I practice, one of them is Second Amendment rights law. And Alan Beck works with my law firm, and we currently have a case before going up to the Supremes, and we've had the Department of Justice sign on as amicus counsel, and that's one of the few times in the history of this country that the Department of Justice has signed on to a private citizen attorney's brief. And so I'm proud to announce that. I've told you guys this before. And so I stay on top of Second Amendment rights. One of my clients is Dick Heller of District of Columbia versus Heller, and that is the seminal case on firearms rights in this country. You could Google it. No, I don't even think you should use Google. That's another communist left-wing piece of garbage company. And we're going to get into a little bit about that and a little bit about Palantir today as well. something that's probably going to blow your mind with Palantir. Let me just let this freaking civilian who's walking slower than molasses in January get by. At least he's out walking. I give him that much. All right. So check it out. Hopefully you guys can see. Hurry up, you disgusting fat body. You're going too slow. Hurry up. That's Marine speak for you're going too doggone slow, you maggot. All right. So, let me see here. Yeah, Fox News, that's another one. So, I mean, it definitely it has less disinformation than the 90% of the other news stations, which are controlled basically by George Soros and the radical left, whose goal is to destroy this country and flood the country with illegal aliens and use the United States Census to redistrict all of the states blue. And that's their goal. That's how California went blue. They picked up an additional 5 congressional seats using the U.S. Census. So what they do is they create what they call sanctuary cities. And then all the illegals go there because they know ICE won't be able to get them, because the state government, in effect, refuses to assist the federal government in removing these illegal aliens from our country. And although they may not be allowed to vote, we know that based upon testimony elicited before the California state legislature, they absolutely do vote. And in most Democrat states, there have been bills to allow illegals to vote in local elections. And so we know that's already happening, and they shouldn't be able to vote in local elections. They're not citizens. They know nothing about our country or our way of life. They're guests in our country, most of them, again, illegally guests. So in this instance, what happened was Sleepy Joe opened our borders up to 20 million illegal aliens, and most of them flooded into sanctuary cities. And what that will in effect do, according to some estimates, give them up to at least 20 new House seats, and on the low end, at least 10 to 13. And maybe 3 or 4 Republican districts may pick up some seats, but net, it's the sanctuary cities, which are Democrat. They're the ones who are going to pick up those seats. And so George Soros and the radical left, they control the narrative. And so this is what you learn in public schools and in college campuses. And most of the mainstream, lamestream press is their misinformation and disinformation that they call news. But that's the real reason why they're flooding the country with illegals, because they know they can't win elections pushing an agenda of telling boys that they're girls, telling girls that they're boys, letting men compete in female sports. Give me a break. You don't see women rushing to compete in men's sports, do you? I wonder why, because they know they can't win. But they know they can't win on this agenda, so what they're going to do is basically rig the elections using the United States Census. And so that's breaking news number 1 for those of you who don't understand why these illegals are being flooded into our country. All right, so now let's get into the real breaking news of the day. And of course, Stephen Danzy says, "You're a liar." You can always tell the lefties, man, because all they can do is engage in ad hominem attacks, and they don't do their research. But if you know anything about the United States Census, you'll know that that's how the Democrats took California, is they picked up an additional 5 seats with illegal aliens using the U.S. Census. And that's why sanctuary cities, why we even have them. So here, come to our state. We promise not to deport you if you come to our state illegally. We'll give you free health care. We'll give you free SNAP or anything we can get you. Driver's licenses. We'll let you vote in local elections. And the problem with voting in the local elections, guys, is that the federal electors, the federal candidates are on that same voter slip. So, and we know in Pennsylvania, they were literally trying to recruit illegals to vote in that last election. And that's on tape, so you can't deny that. Again, so let's get into the breaking news of the day. So as you guys know, I'm a libertarian. I'm a recovering Democrat. I was a Democrat when Democrats were patriots and they loved America. When they pledged allegiance to the American flag and not the rainbow flag and any other flag that's not their country's flag. So as a result, I have become a libertarian. And I really don't trust either party, and I'm going to give you a case in point as to why. So, the Republicans, the rhinos, went ahead and voted down, check this out, guys, The Hearing Protection Act. Do you guys know what the Hearing Protection Act is? Put it in the comments if you know what the Hearing Protection Act is. And at the next stoplight, I'll be able to do comms with you and let you know what happened. Because this is unbelievable to me. This was a really big deal to me. Being a Marine Corps veteran and having major hearing loss from small arms fire, I can tell you that it's a really big deal. So when I was in the Corps, they gave us these little orange foamy little earplugs, but it was sort of an unspoken rule that you didn't wear those because you wouldn't be able to hear commands in the field. And as a result, you wouldn't know what was going on. You wouldn't know, what your sergeant or your corporal was telling you to do. You couldn't communicate with your fire team because there's just a lot of noise from the guns going off, from the rifles and mortar rounds and everything else popping up. But it's mainly the small arms. I mean, you actually get more hearing loss, believe it or not, from an M16 rifle or an M4 nowadays than you do from artillery. Those cannon cockers get less hearing loss, assuming they don't have hearing protection, than a Marine rifleman or a machine gunner. And so small arms fire is what makes you lose your hearing. And then just foul. Look, the gay parade is on a different channel, bro. But I appreciate that you showed up. But if you don't have anything positive to say, I think my moderators are going to send you back to San Francisco with all the little drag queens where you belong. But in any event, the Hearing Protection Act was basically a law that said I no longer have to get a special tax stamp or permission from the federal government to have a sound suppressor on my weapon. And so most of you guys grew up watching the A-Team or Chips or one of these shows where they call them silencers, right? And they put them on the weapon, and you'd hear a little noise like chirp, 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 right? And allegedly that would mean you couldn't hear the weapon, but that's not true. So a suppressor, what it does is it sort of muffles enough of the sound to where you don't blow your eardrums out, but you definitely can hear it. I mean, I can tell if someone's popping a suppressor off at 300 yards away. I can hear it. The difference is that it doesn't have that high decibel sound that blows your eardrums out. And so the Democrats and the Republicans, but mainly Democrats, females mainly, voted to get rid of these suppressors because they don't like guns to begin with, because they've been brainwashed since birth that guns are bad by the left and rhinos, but mainly the left, Marxists, anti-Americans, people who don't believe in the concept of unalienable rights. And so as a result, they became illegal unless you had special permission from the government to have a suppressor. And you have to pay like $500 or $600, get special permission. You have to store them a certain way. It's a total nightmare. And so as a result, you have to wear these earplugs, and you can't hear anything. You can't. So if you're in a fire team or you're in a combat situation, you really can't wear the hearing protection. Now, modernly, we have some decent hearing protection where it sort of cancels out the explosive noises and stuff. But if the battery goes dead, or you're dumb enough to use one of those newfangled batteries that explode, like the ones that are in your cell phone, you could end up, having a battery explode on your ear. And the alkaline batteries, they go dead after a certain amount of time. So if you're using that type of hearing protection, though, that's not the best. The best is to have a suppressor. And so when you go to the gun range and you're putting rounds down range, you have a suppressor that sort of muffles the sound. So the Hearing Protection Act, much to my chagrin, was voted down. Of course, all the Democrats voted against it, as usual. But there were MAGA Republicans, not MAGA, strike that, Rhino Republicans in name only, Northeastern leftist Republicans, right? Big government Republicans who voted against it. And as a result, now we have to stay on the same path, which is the path towards less freedom. And so just so you guys know, that's breaking. I think that happened today, actually. The Hearing Protection Act was voted down. So that's unfortunate. Now, By the way, I appreciate everybody joining the chat. Let's get into the next topic of the day, Lane Myers. So my understanding is that Lane Myers is in depositions, taking depositions or statements today. Don't quote me on it, but I think that's what's going on. And either today or tomorrow. And Lane Myers is a patriotic freedom fighter that I've been covering and trying to aid in any way that I can to give him comfort while he suffers languishing in jail, because the nexus of which his case evolved from a Second Amendment claim. He was at a city council meeting and there was a mayor who was praising somebody who's anti-Second Amendment, and he stood up and said boo while everyone else was cheering. All these Marxist commies were cheering, and the mayor had him removed, physically removed, and then arrested. And Lane ended up winning that case. He was arrested and charged, and he won that case, but the prosecutor never let it go. And it's a long story, but ultimately Lane was jailed on multiple felonies, and he's languishing in jail now. And so I was going to do a quasi live show with him today, but unfortunately for you guys, he's busy. And also, we're no longer going to be live streaming him from jail. I'm hoping that I'll be able to record our call. I've got to make sure that's okay, and then post it later on Friday. So I'm hoping that Friday in the daytime, I'll be able to do a jail interview with him and be able to audio record and post that later in the day. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because not in the chat box where you're at now, but in the actual comment section, I would like it if you would put any questions or comments that you have for Lane in the actual comment section. And by the way, guys, make sure to double tap that screen and like and subscribe to my channel. Make sure to always save as well my videos and record them as well for later, because you never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. We know that YouTube doesn't like people like me because I'm a patriot, and they are part of the Google World Health Organization, One World Government cabal that I don't support. So naturally, they're not going to probably support me too much either. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. So if you want to learn about the law from a lawyer of over 20 years and my impressions about what's going on in the world, this is the channel to be. So that is pretty much it for Lane. And if you've got questions, drop them in the actual comment section, and I'll do my best to ask him these questions and get the answers for you on Friday. All right, so the next thing, Katie Hobbs, our Marxist communist governor of Arizona. And of course, we know that the Arizona government is suspected of working with the drug cartels, helping flood the country with illegal aliens. We know the drug cartels had made billions of dollars with these open border policies of Joe Biden, flooding our country with illegals to help us rig our elections with the U.S. Census, to help people like Hobbs rig elections using the United States Census to make sure that they use illegal aliens in the census count, because the census counts bodies, not voters. And give me a bunch of ones if you think it should be illegal to count illegal aliens in the census for purposes of giving new congressional districts, which I think it's absurd. But we know that communist China, along with the drug cartels, has made an enormous amount of money with this illegal alien human trafficking, funneling and importing fentanyl and illegal drugs, arms, and everything else you can imagine into the United States. And so as a result of that, it helps destabilize our country. And with the leftist control of our news media, a lot of these commenters in here who are so brainwashed think that that's okay. But at the end of the day, it's our enemies who are pushing this illegal immigration. And Katie Hobbs, of course, to the rescue of the illegal immigration, communist China, and drug cartels, has gone ahead and scored another win for the enemies of America. She literally vetoed a bill that would make it illegal for the communist Chinese government to own farms, even farms near military bases in our country. And so obviously we don't want communist China having control over our food supply. They're our enemy. These people are not good people. Their government, the communist Chinese, are evil. And we know that they bring in suitcases full of gold and silver and cash and use it to pay off political candidates. We know that that happened as far back as the Clintons, with Communist Chinese General Charlie Tree helping fund the Clinton campaign, and that has continued to occur. We know that I think the Senator Menendez just got busted for something similar to that. But they work hand in hand with the drug cartels, and they have a really big grip over Arizona, unfortunately. And Arizona is where Lane Myers languishes in jail. And so I thought I'd cover that for you Arizonans. And let me think, what else? What else is going on in the news, guys? What else do you want me to talk about? We've covered the Katie Hobbs debacle. We've covered the Lane Myers situation, and we've covered the Hearing Protection Act. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much the major breaking news of the day for you guys. But hopefully, I'm going to park here and see if you've got any comments or questions for me before I go hit the weights. All right, so let's see here. My Norse boyfriend still loves you. All right. So Letso TVO says, if we don't know what we have, you'll never know what you're missing. Texas Gal says, the riots just happened in the George Floyd city. Right. Let me see here. Good seeing you, Texas Gal. Dad says, did you FOIA Judge Zip's phone calls and emails the day your wife was fired? Okay, but put those questions in the actual comment section, because this live stream that we're in, for some reason, when I stream from my phone, when the video gets saved, all these things disappear. So what I need you to do is, where the actual comments are, add them in the comments, not the chat area here. But please do that, because I know that Lane wants to hear from you guys, and I'll make sure to relay any information that I can about that. You're right, Detroit Patriot. The Communist Chinese Party is pure evil. Single party state, just like Communist-fornia, and that's their goal. That's why they're trying to flood our country with illegals, because they know that once we go single party, the Communist Chinese can pay off all these Democrats and basically usher in a new era of thought police. And we see that the Democrat states in particular are really big on censorship. Anything they disagree with, they'll call hate speech or misinformation or disinformation. Oh, the next thing I wanted to share with you is Palantir. So Palantir is another one of these evil companies, in my opinion, an evil company. And they're working on AI, and their claim to fame is that they suppress the speech of what they call the radical right in Europe. And they're only one election away from being able to use artificial intelligence to suppress the speech and thoughts of people like you and I in the United States. And these AI programs, I don't know if you've noticed, but Grok or ChatGPT, it's so tainted to the far left. You can't get any information out of it, that it goes against the left-wing narrative. So without guys like me bringing you the news, you guys are done, because there's not going to be any real news. It's going to be controlled by artificial intelligence, with companies like Palantir who want to bring in a one world government like the European Union, where you only have one story, and it's the story that the government wants, the billionaires want you to hear. So, and I know that, Nathan says China isn't communist. Well, I agree. I don't think that anybody could ever really be communist, because it would be a society that doesn't function. But they're called communists, and they consider themselves to be communists, but they're basically totalitarians, just like the Democrats in California are radical totalitarians. And they want to suppress anything that you say that goes against their narrative. They want to control the thoughts of your children. And so obviously we don't want that. As a libertarian, I think that less government means more freedom. And so be very wary of AI, be very wary of the mainstream press, guys. And I don't know about reptilians, Elsie Smokes, but I've heard about them. I've checked them out. Kurt Bronson, good seeing you, bro. And let me see here. Sin City Giggles, good seeing you. Ghetto Cowboy, good seeing you too. Lizard Peep, yeah, Rich Spillman, right on. So that's pretty much, in a nutshell, what's going on today. I didn't really have a lot of time, because I want to go hit the weights, but just so you guys know what's going on. The Hearing Protection Act was basically not passed because of some turncoat rhino Republicans. Lane Myers is still locked up, and I do have an interview scheduled with him on Friday, assuming everything goes well. If you want to put your questions or concerns in the actual comments section of this thread, not in the chat box where you're talking now, but in the comments section. And Texas Gal, love seeing you, ma'am. I know that is a cool handle, by the way. And there's no such thing as a mix of capitalism and socialism, Nathan. You're either capitalist or you're not. If you believe in laissez-faire capitalism, you believe that the government should stay out of our business and that we all have the right to contract with one another or not. And socialism is where the government controls the means of production. And so China does meet the official definition of socialism. They control the means of production. Now, whether or not they meet the actual definition of communism, which is the next step in the road from socialism, I say it's safe that they don't, because you can't have true communism until you have globalist control. But with the European Union and now with the Marxist controlling the Democrat Party in the United States, we're basically one election away from that happening. So that will probably be happening sooner than you think, especially with AI and all these AI programs only allowing the leftist narrative to be what they call facts. So when you guys do research, that's all you're going to get. Now, good seeing you, Rami. And Rami, I am just about ready to go hit the weights. And it's interesting to hear all the college kids, all the baristas like Bry 890, who think they know what socialism is. If you actually know the definition of socialism, it means the state controls the means of production. And the state controlled the means of production in Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany was, in fact, a socialist country. They did have people who were in industry, who were the corporate heads, but the brown shirts were overseeing everything and reporting back to the Fuhrer. And so it was National Socialism. The difference between German socialism and Russian socialism is that the Germans felt that Russian socialism was controlled by Jews, and they didn't like that. In fact, Hitler was actually a member of the Communist Party in Germany. A lot of people don't know that. But you can check out Tick History if you want to learn a little bit more. He's on YouTube, and he'll break down, even show you pictures and official archival records showing you that Hitler was, in fact, a communist before he joined the National Socialist Deutsche Arbeiterpartei. But they wouldn't teach you that at an American college because that goes against their narrative. In any event, fascists were Italians, and you obviously don't know what a fascist is, because although the Germans did support and mirror themselves after some of the fascist ideals, the Germans were in fact socialists, national socialists. But the Democrats hate it when you say that, because it goes against their idea of what socialism is, because they want to say that the Germans were right-wing, which they weren't. They were socialists, at least under the Third Reich. But if you went to a Marxist-run public school or a Marxist-run college, it makes sense that you wouldn't know that, because you've been brainwashed to think otherwise. All right, so the John Woodmansey, as far as the statute that he violated, good seeing you, Life Under the Microscope. Good seeing you, Texas Gal. And go vegan now. You can go ahead and define Marxism yourself. You don't need to ask me. Just don't use ChatGPT or Grok, because it's all far left garbage. You have to probably go find a book, but you might have to know how to read first. And if you went to a public school or a university, you probably can't. So in any event, Johnny Freedom, go tell the North Koreans they are a democratic people's republic. Okay, you can do that if you want. I have no interest in talking to the North Koreans. Let me see here. And yeah, so it's just hilarious seeing guys just talk out their asses on my channel. In any event, it's good seeing you, Life Under the Microscope. It's good seeing all my friends here. I'm gonna go hit the gym and try to do like 315 for 12 on the bench today, and we'll see what I can do. But yeah, it's been awesome seeing you guys. Let me stow my firearm here and put it in the safe. For all you non-Democrats, I'm stowing my weapon and locking it in a safe. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit the weights. Yeah, and I'm going to keep it up, guys, but I do appreciate you guys joining me. It's always a pleasure to be able to speak with people who are still capable of critical thinking, who haven't been brainwashed by the Marxist-run education system. Make sure to always homeschool your kids, get them as far away from the blue-haired mafia as you can. Homestead, homeschool, and form parallel systems with like-minded people who support the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And Dad, I love having you on my channel, and I am all about trying to assist in any way that I can in a legal manner, Lane Myers, and bringing you any information that I can about him or about his case and try to break it down as best as I can. So I do appreciate you guys joining me. And Kevin Biernarski, love it having you here again today, brother. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the road, hit the weights, and I will, let's OTVO. I'm going to hit it, brother. And I still need to cover you and Brick Jonesy's case, and I'm just waiting for Ryan and BZ Watchdog to reach out to me if they have any other stuff they want me to cover, and I'll try to break down your case as well. And yeah, I never was a fan of the actual Constitution because in operation it doesn't work, Johnny Freedom. The government's supposed to be bound by the chains of the Constitution. Now, I'm a big supporter of the Unanimous Declaration, the Articles of Confederation, and the Bill of Rights. But the problem is it's still called the Bill of Rights. You guys ever wonder why that is? Because when you have a bill, it gets passed into law, and then it would be called the Law of Rights. So it's always interesting to me that most people don't get that. Why isn't it called the Law of Rights if it was passed into law? Think about that. And why does the Supreme Court so often call our unalienable rights privileges? Why do they call it your Fifth Amendment privilege or your First Amendment privilege? Why have they converted our rights into privileges? Well, probably because it wasn't passed into law, but that's something you guys should probably think about. For all you critical thinkers who weren't brainwashed by some Marxist-run college professor, think about that, and we'll talk about it in one of my next shows. So I will definitely be joining you later on in the week, and I do appreciate everybody joining me and supporting me. I appreciate the super chats. I appreciate the memberships and you guys supporting my channel. And that's right, F. And Rami, you're right. Rami, I still want to do a show with you when you get some free time on municipal corporations and how they're established and how they're basically a scam to fleece the people. And I would love to do that with you. So whenever you're ready, just let me know, brother. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and train, and try to get some of the stress out of my system. Because as you know, I'm not a happy camper about the Hearing Protection Act not being passed into law today. So go ahead and Google it or check it out on somehow. Find out about the Hearing Protection Act. Go to the Library of Congress or wherever you need to go and learn about it. But in the meantime, guys, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Semper Fi, do or die.